It's TEDA time.
Living in Terrebonne, living in Terrebonne. You sure won't want to miss it, and I'll bet that you'll revisit living in Terrebonne.
Local Terrebonne Parish Economic News.
Hello and welcome to this edition of TEDA Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. You can always tell our beautiful backdrop means that it's TEDA Time. It also means that Cohen's here in the house. Cohen, thank you for joining us once again. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us back.
All right. Of course, Cohen B. Kidry, CEO of Terrebonne Economic Development Authority. Sitting next to him are some representatives from Leadership Terrebonne. First, we have Trevion Smith. Trevion, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Next to him, Miss Karen Schilling, the Executive Director for Leadership Terrebonne and the class of 93.
Started it all off.
So that's exactly right. And your involvement has been so very appreciated in Leadership Terrebonne.
Well,
Done it
thank
for a
you.
long time. And so we appreciate that. Sitting next to her is Miss Melissa DeRocher, Leadership Terrebonne alumni and Association Board Chair in class of 2021, right?
Yes.
Very good. Of course, I failed to mention Trevion Smith, of course, class of 22. And so we've got lots of people with lots of history here. But let's just talk a little bit about Leadership Terrebonne as it kind of came into your vernacular with TEDA.
Well, I'd heard a lot of things about it. Some of the board members of the TEDA board had gone through it, and they were talking about how interesting it was. And that, every month, it's a year-long course, and once a month you dedicate an entire day to different things, which we'll cover later.
Right.
And I found that to be very interesting, especially with being a resident here all my life, but working away. I figured, that'd be a good investment for me to do personally and business-wise.
Okay.
So it's something that, so I'm in the class of 2023 and very much enjoying it.
And so you actually made the decision to do that. You weren't voluntold.
I was not
into doing
voluntold.
that. Yeah.
I had to ask, beg, and plead, and they put me on the list. And
Right.
and I understand as it continues, the waiting list gets longer.
That is exactly right. And so it's one of those things that you kind of get asked to be a part of Leadership Terrebonne, if in fact you're identified as somebody who has some leadership skills in the area. And so it's actually an honor to be asked.
It certainly
Right.
is.
Okay. And Karen, the history of Leadership Terrebonne is a very rich one, right?
It is. It started with a small group of people that were mostly associated with the Houma Terrebonne Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Back in the early 1990s, there had been a needs assessment done. And one of the things that became apparent was that Terrebonne Parish did not have a leadership program. And a venue for people to get to know their community a little bit better, more of the inside and the outside kind of thing, a way to grow leaders and to help them be more informed about different things that were going on in the community. So as I said, in the early 90s, this group formed. Some of the people were Hartwell Lewis, Kay Thibodeau, Alvin Tillman, various members. And so they worked with someone outside of the area to help formulate the structure of what would become Leadership Terrebonne. The initial class was supposed to start in 1992, in the fall of 1992, but we had a hurricane.
Yep,
We had Hurricane
that's right,
Andrew then, and it hit right around the time that the program was supposed to be starting. So we had to delay the beginning of that class. And I remember as a member of that first class, which ended up being the class of 1993, none of us really knew exactly what we were it was really a voluntold situation.
Right.
I think the word went out. We need people to participate. And so I think many of us kind of got involved without really understanding what kind of commitment we were making and what we would be doing. And, my experience in that very first class was just lots of enthusiasm. I mean, every subject, every topic that we did when we started the class in January of 1993, my poor husband got an earful every single time I came back from a day-long class. It was so interesting. We had speakers on topic areas that were experts in that particular area, very, very thought-provoking, idea-stimulating, and it just instilled in all of the people in that class, a desire to do more to make more of Terrebonne Parish and to, challenge our leadership skills as well as make us better voters, more informed people in the community. So we started in 1993. We have continuously operated as a leadership group through all those years. We celebrated our 30th anniversary last year with that class, and then we are in our 31st class this year. Cohen, of course, as he said, was in that class. We got Cohen's application kind of early late last summer, I guess in the fall, summer kind of thing, and I was actually in Lowe's buying stuff and somehow recognized him and said, "Hi, are you Cohen Guidry? I think you applied for Leadership Terrebonne." So, got to meet Cohen really early in Lowe's when we were buying home improvement stuff.
Sure.
So, so it's been a wonderful, great track record for the organization. We've had on an average about 30 members of our community, or people that may live outside of the community who do business, work here, that kind of thing, but have some major connection to Terrebonne Parish. So over 30 years, it's probably 900 or 1,000, close to 1,000 people perhaps that have been directly in the program.
Well, and it's a wonderful history that you share. The really interesting thing about that, being that we've worked together since 1993, has been that your enthusiasm for it in 93 is equal to that enthusiasm to this day. One of the things that we learned a little bit about in our first segment is the rich history of Leadership Terrebonne. As it continues, people get asked to be able to do that. A lot like what Cohen told us a little bit about. You kind of have to be asked, and there's a waiting list for people to be involved in and with Leadership Terrebonne. So let's talk a little bit to Miss Melissa DeRocher. Class of 21.
Right.
It's almost like, the distinguished class of 2021.
It's the best class.
Oh, my. All right. And Cohen would say that this next class is going to be the best class. And I think Trevion would say that 2022 was the best class. Karen would say 93, but okay.
Sure. So I say I'm first class.
Oh, my. Right. And so the rest of us are either in business or coach. And so Ms. Melissa, tell us a little bit about the process, how it went, maybe what your longing was to be a part of Leadership Terrebonne.
Sure. Well, for us at Explore Houma, it's part of our professional development track. So we're challenged to take the class. I really didn't know what to expect, and it far exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
It ignited a passion, definitely, to get involved. It challenged me to serve. So I knew once the class had ended, that was the challenge, to continue to move forward with that as a leader, as a servant, in whatever capacity I could be a benefit to the community. So that continued as I asked to join the board, ran for election, and was nominated. So it's just an honor and a real networking opportunity. I'm still very close to my classmates. I see them everywhere. There's a red thread that goes through the community, and it definitely has left footprints all throughout Terrebonne Parish for sure.
That's a heck of a quote. Mm-hmm. And very much what I have learned on the outside, on the periphery of what Leadership Terrebonne is. These people become part of your family, right?
Absolutely.
It's your Leadership Terrebonne family. And so it's very interesting to hear that in the process that you went through. And then I like the fact that it's that balance, right? It pulls you in both professionally to be better, but it sounds like there's a lot of personal benefit as well to
Very
that.
much so. Absolutely. We still have connections. I think it's a lifelong connection. It was very surprising, but I see my classmates in all walks of the parish to this day. And now I can call them. We can connect. We serve together. We serve for community events. We serve on the board together. It's just a powerful connection. And I think that took me by surprise. I didn't realize that it would be that strong, but it really is.
Yeah. And ultimately, Karen, I think that that's one of the values and the goals of what Leadership Terrebonne is to make those lasting connections.
It's the foundation for our parish in a lot of ways, for people to get together, to work together toward common goals, projects, and especially as we vision to see, what do we want this parish to look like? What do we want this parish to be doing? So you'll see many Leadership Terrebonne people out there doing volunteering, serving. I think, Melissa, I mean, servant leadership has been always one of our big tenets. There is no obligation at the conclusion of the program to say, now you have to sign up and do something.
Right.
We've really kind of downplayed that. You know, it's like an internal thing. What has this year called you to do?
Right.
We do something, you know, to try to encourage people to get out and do stuff, but it really has to come intrinsically from people.
So Travion, for you, I know you're going to tell me it's the class of 22 that is not the first or the last, but the best.
Not so much. Our class was a lot of troublemakers.
Okay. Wow. It's nice for you to admit you were part of that. Pray tell. But talk about a little bit about this being a part of that and the feeling you got about wanting to at least be a part of Leadership Terrebonne.
For me, it started a year before. I was invited to go to lunch with Karen by two of my friends, Cherry and Sherry Wilmore. They were like, you should come have lunch with Karen. And I'm like, who's that? And to see that passion in her as she was talking about this program and all the things that you would experience going through it, I was like, okay, I definitely want to do it. Mm-hmm. So fortunately for me, I had kind of like an inside track for that next year when I applied. I knew kind of what I was getting myself into because Karen seemed like a great person to be around. And
Clearly.
she talked with so much passion about all these different topics. And I was like, well, I definitely want to know. So I served in the capacity of just being like a volunteer, just doing stuff in the community. And I applied to be a part of Leadership Terrebonne and was accepted. And throughout the course of the year, I learned the intricacies of how the parish works. But not only that, it kind of prepped me to be more intuitive or, I guess, inquisitive about the problems and some of the things that go on in the parish. How can I get involved? Where are my strengths needed? And is there things that I can do to better improve our parish? So throughout the year, I was always thinking about that. Karen, at the opening session, she talked a lot about what do you envision Terrebonne Parish looking like? And for me, I was like, I want to see more places for me to put my hands on stuff, to help out. And I started serving, pretty much hit the ground running. Even throughout that year, I joined a few boards. I started serving at events, and I just tried to be available for anything and everything that I could. I wanted to have a better experience as a resident, not just as a leader, but as a resident. I wanted to be involved. And it was a great experience. And at the closing session, asking the question, okay, where do you want to see yourself in a year as a leader? And asking yourself that question and having time to really think about it, it kind of set me up for what I'm doing today currently as a board member for leadership, the Leadership Alumni Board.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And so what's most interesting about that is you represented what the class of 22 is about. You obviously have taken the best out of a challenging situation. And maybe that ultimately is what we're asked to do in Leadership Terrebonne, is to make the best out of whatever situations our parish is facing.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you learned a great deal of that. So I appreciate that. So thank you both for sharing. Really interesting that I just today was involved in a discussion where I challenged some of the people, some of the leaders in our group, our family of work, that a lot of people see the word opportunity is nowhere, Nowhere. But if you take a good look at that and you separate those two words, the opportunity is now here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And we spent a lot of time just this morning talking about that very, very thing. And it's interesting that you were challenged with that just in one of the ways that you support people in the area, support people in being a better person. But you had an interesting situation where we asked the question, what are you going to do, right?
Absolutely. And it is. We can all sit back and talk about how bad things are in our area, in our community, in our lives, or what have you. But we first have to be able to see the good parts, because there's a silver lining to every cloud. Mm-hmm. And if everybody in our community would, and all of us included, mm-hmm. would just pitch in a little bit and try to make a difference. Exactly what Travion was saying, let me show up and just use me at your leisure. Where do you need me to volunteer? What do you need me to do? And everybody gets in and starts to rebuild this community, our downtown. I mean, it's come a long way. So just since I've come into this place, and not because of me, just because of the efforts of so many good people and the ones that show up, and I'm seeing more people involved in festivals and in outings and things like that. And it makes me smile.
It should. But the interesting thing is there's a reason why you notice that.
Yeah,
It's
because I
because you're
wasn't part of it.
there. No. It's because you're there.
Right.
It's the one thing Trevion talked about, presence.
Yep.
It's
Show
the
up.
greatest gift that we can give is to show up. And it sounds like that with Leadership Terrebonne, the challenge is now that we've kind of shown you, we've taught you there's some of the leadership opportunities in our area. We taught you about what they do. And Karen, getting back into the schools was another one of those things where it was one of those big challenges. But here we are now understanding and appreciating how different they are now, right?
Yes. And, that's one of the things that people look forward to the most is, walking into a classroom and where they're able to see active teaching, see what's going on in a classroom. It dispels a lot of the myths, that people might think that's really happening in the school, so they can experience it firsthand. This month, the class we'll be doing our Environment Day, and they'll be talking with people that have their hands every day in the dirt.
Literally getting their hands dirty, not metaphorically, right?
Right. But people who advocate for, our coastline, our levees, the constant building of levees. Dirt doesn't get piled up one time. It's a constant work to keep us safe. At one time, I always thought healthcare was it still is an extremely important issue in Terrebonne Parish, but that was my background.
Right.
But one of the things that Leadership Terrebonne helped me open up, if we don't have something to protect our parish, doesn't matter what we build.
We don't have a parish.
We need to have, we need all of this.
Right.
I mean, and I want to make sure, we need to have doctors at our hospitals,
Oh, gotcha.
that doesn't say one thing's more important than the other, but, we need people working in all these areas. And so this month we'll be doing our Environment Day. We'll have opportunities for people to see what goes into building a levee and how what kind of responsibilities the levee district has in assuring that mitigation's done, those types of things. So in every one of our sessions, you hear about, what the challenges are of those leaders that are making the difference in there, and then what are their successes? Obviously we see those successes every day, but we will start looking for people to be in next year's class real soon. We do have a waiting list from last year, so and we were very happy for that.
Right.
Cohen and I have talked about people being able to put people forth in the class. Our board has just we did a great exercise last year with a board retreat to rebrand, to really focus on our vision, mission statement, to really get ourselves, out in the community, and be seen as an organization, but then also as the people that have been in the class, that are volunteering, that are moving, they're shaking, they're doing things in the community.
Yeah, and Melissa, it's one of those things where it sounds like you're very passionate about staying in touch with those people, wanting to be involved, being on the board. And so it's got to be a good feeling about what you've learned since this class of 2021 and how you're moving forward with that.
Absolutely. And also, we're able to contribute to see sustainability for the future. I think we've come a long way. We have committees now that are working on marketing, programming, sponsorship. So we're seeing a lot of growth. It's very encouraging. The program has been in place for 30 years. We want to see it in place for 30 more.
Right.
So
And keep growing.
it's a huge focus for the board now,
Right.
is how do we sustain this? How do we keep the momentum? We want to be available to everyone.
Right.
No.
And coming together as a board, Trevion, you mentioned what that was like personally for you, that question. It's nice to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm ready for this challenge.
Absolutely. Taking ownership in it. And as soon as I got on the board, Melissa, knowing one of my strong suits being marketing and advertising, she nominated me to be the chair of the marketing committee.
Right.
So one of my directives is to raise awareness for the program, but also to bombard the amount of applicants that we get. I want more people to know about the program. So we have the best classes going forward, not just about the ones who have already completed. So I take that extremely seriously. And I'm trying to let that passion rub off on me from Karen to be that person that is super passionate about this program and let everyone in the parish know about it.
Well, we appreciate you being able to come on, all of you. So Melissa, Karen, Trevion, appreciate it, and Cohen. So we thank y'all for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Leadership Terrebonne is alive and well. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of TEDA Time. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming right here on HTV.